Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to American LFC. I am Nate Kaywood. This evening we're talking to my brother, Eli. How the heck are you doing?
Good.
Okay, glad to hear it. Love that excitement. And we're excited to introduce a very, very special guest, a very, very long-time friend of both Eli and I's, originally from Platteville, Wisconsin, where Eli and I hail from, Jesse Brown. How are you, sir?
I am good, gentlemen. Good. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us on the podcast today. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
So, Eli, I just want to make sure that I'm following the script because I'm flying off the handles here. But I think we should introduce JB. What is it exactly that you do, and how did we come to be chatting with you on the podcast?
I am currently in Tennessee. I just moved here a couple years back. I am a USSF certified TSSAA Tennessee Secondary School Athletic Association referee.
A lot of acronyms.
Referee, yeah. United States Soccer Federation referee as well.
Okay, great. Congratulations. I mean, that seems like pretty impressive, to be totally honest. So what exactly does it take to get all of those letters behind your name?
Well, not too much. I actually certified as a referee during COVID. I've always played since high school, since college. I refereed when I was 14. I'm your age now, so.
So older than that, just a little bit.
Yeah, I refereed from when I was 14 until I was 20, and then I took a 14-year hiatus. Injured my ankle pretty severely, talus fracture while playing, and I actually decided to, from the hospital bed that night, recertify as a referee. Got the ball rolling. It was during COVID, so it was a little different process then, but I sort of familiarized myself with the process since as well, becoming a referee. It's been a wild ride. I've had some great experiences, especially since moving to Tennessee from Wisconsin. I only did a handful of tournaments while I was still there, but having moved here, I've refereed for the TSSAA high school seasons. Did a boys season, 2 girls seasons, another boys season as well. So I'll be on my 4th season when the boys season starts again next spring.
Nice. And so, so what's the ultimate goal with this? What is your hope for the trajectory of your career in refereeing?
Well, as of now, because I've only been a certified referee for just over 2 years, I have to wait until I'm certified for 3 consecutive years. That I might be able to jump the gun on that because I was certified for 6 years when I was younger. But I think probably I'll just wait till the 3rd year before I begin the process of certifying as a regional referee. So to climb the ladder, in USSF, there are 5 tiers. So the grassroots referee, let me actually pull something up here.
Yeah, sure. Take your time. I'm actually looking over some show notes here as well myself, just checking in what it was that Eli created an outline for us that I absolutely didn't look at because I am wildly irresponsible, and Eli is vastly more organized than I am. But I've gotten this far through life by winging it by the seat of my pants, and so why would I change tonight? Okay,
well,
that sounds great.
Maybe while you're doing that, we can spend a couple quick minutes here talking about the hot story in English Premier League of the financial fair play deductions that were handed down to Everton late last week, right? So they basically, compressing things, is they got a 10-point deduction for misrepresenting the value of their players by £20 million. Okay.
Over a 3-year period of time, I believe.
Was it over a period of time? I thought it was just the Richarlison thing.
All right, I might be mistaken, but I trust you. My impression was that it's about the aggregate of the way that over the 3-year period of time you can only have a net loss of £105 million, and the way that they the way that they evaluated their losses, their deductions through COVID, this panel did not agree with the numbers that they lost, basically, right? They were inflating the amount of money that they lost versus what they actually were monetarily lost, if that makes sense.
I think you got it backwards there.
Cool.
They misrepresented how much they lost by.
That's what I meant to say, whatever my words were. I could have absolutely been wrong. What I meant to say is what Eli said. So let's just put that in the record. That's what I meant to say. Anyway, Eli, please continue.
So, I mean, it kind of gets into an interesting conversation with two of our Premier League rivals here. One that's currently leading the league and one that's an absolute dumpster fire. But it does seem like this independent commission.
That's City and Chelsea?
Man City and Chelsea, yeah.
Okay, make sure I'm on the same page.
So apparently City's thing was like the stuff that's going on now is it was a multi-year investigation over a 10-year time frame, and that Chelsea's stuff is going back to the Abramovich era and how finances were handled under his stewardship. So it kind of gets into an interesting, hey, this independent commission kind of hammered Everton that dropped him down to 19th place from 14th, right? What's going to happen to these two teams that are way more guilty from what we have seen here is the common man not having inside information to what this independent commission has access to? What's going to happen to these other two teams? Nate, what do you think?
Nothing.
Yeah, that's the sad.
Next question, please.
Nice, thank you. That's great. That's great content right there. Excellent.
No, I'm sorry. Let me follow that up with a. So what? It is interesting because the Premier League has has drawn a line in the sand that says we are going to, to our best ability, start to hold clubs accountable for past wrongdoing, which I think is admirable. It shows that they actually believe that they have teeth when it comes to adjudicating any of these sort of concerns and violations. The thing that's going to be interesting is that the resources that Man City has to be able to hold up these things in courts of arbitration and to continue to just drag their heels and keep things out. Like, that's why they were able to beat the Champions League, the UEFA charges, because it was able to go to an independent court of arbitration of CAS, I believe, and they didn't find them guilty. Look, the thing is, there is a chance that there may be some sort of repercussion to Man City. I think the bigger question here is what I always look at this as the perspective is that the Premiership, the Premier League is a product, and we are the consumers of that product. The three of us here and billions of people on the planet are consumers of that product. And we have to ask the question, what is more important? Right? Is it important to feel that financial doping will be slapped on the wrist and that they will be restricted from being able to use their financial might to great success, arguably cheating to win titles and trophies? Yeah, probably. But do we need to? Is it also better for the product to sanction them so much that they're relegated to the National League? It's tough to say. Like, the question is, like, if Everton is found guilty for one single misrepresentation of their losses, one time, they're taking off 10 points. Right? There's 115 accusations out against Man City right now. And The Guardian just did a deep dive profile on offshore accounts that Abramovich was directly linked to giving payments to agents of players who ended up playing at Chelsea, like Eden Hazard, like Willen, like Samuel Eto'o. I don't know, players that are pretty good, that probably helped them, I don't know, win the league and the Champions League. So it's like, what is there to be done? And also, do we really believe that this is the first time that this has happened? Like, and also, probably are not all clubs somewhat culpable in doing this? It's a system that's been created from within. They're the clubs are the ones that agree to all these rules. Anyway, sorry, that was a diatribe. JB?
I read something further on the link that Eli sent us earlier. So was it Portsmouth in 9 and 10, the 9-09-10 season? They received a deduction that actually put them into the relegation zone. They were relegated, and they've never been back to the league.
Yeah.
Is that something?
Well, I think, yeah, no, you're right. I remember when that happened. I mean, that's how long we've been following the Premier League. They also went into administration because they were bankrupt, and the club almost was dissolved.
Right. And that's not something that we'll see with Manchester City.
But it's also interesting, right? Because I saw over the weekend or last week, City released their profits for this year, and they claimed it was almost £800 million, and there's just no way. There's no way.
Yet they vehemently deny everything, of course.
I mean, that's the thing, is they've just got so much money that it's going to get tied up, and I think it would be interesting.
Right off the bat was bravo, because nothing's going to happen to City, especially now Everton. And the reason I bring up Portsmouth, if Everton were to fall and go down to the Championship and beyond, they may never get back to the Premier League the way they've been. It's possible, but that could This could devastate Everton as a club.
Eli, what do you think about all this?
Well, I think, as much as it pains me to say, I think Everton will probably be fine, because Sean Dyche is used to being in a relegation struggle. That's kind of where he's been most of his career, and he's usually kept teams up. So my gut tells me, with over half the season yet to play, Everton will probably be okay.
Tell that from Men in Blazers, because I don't know. That's my Everton insight, is Men in Blazers.
Yeah.
I'm kind of on Eli's side here, though, because the thing is, like, they're just not in the same position that they were last season. Sean Dyche came in with 4 games left to play, and he was still able to get enough points over the line in 4 games for them to not go down. Frank Lampard had them in an absolute turmoil tailspin into the doom of oblivion, because maybe he's arguably one of the worst managers in professional football. But the thing is, like, Sean Dyche comes in with 4 games, steadies the ship. Sure, they get a point here, they get a point there. Okay, they squeak out with squeaky bum time. They didn't get relegated. Look, they dropped 10. They were just deducted 10 points, and they're in 19th place with a better goal differential than everybody else in the bottom 5. I do truly believe that they're going to be absolutely fine, mainly because Luton Town probably won't even break, as much as it pains me to say them, because Liverpool just drew them like 2 weeks ago. They probably won't break 20 points this season.
Yeah, and that's going to put them close.
Like, no
joke. That's going to put them right on the bubble. All right, I think we were discussing the financial fair play implications before we had our brief technical difficulties there. So I think basically kind of the consensus is City have too much money and will be able to tie everything up, and Chelsea maybe.
I think Chelsea will get slapped for it.
I think Chelsea will probably get slapped, but we'll see.
There's a history of Chelsea getting fined and getting
transfer bans.
Transfer bans. So it's already set up. It's safe for the Premier League to do that. They've never done it with City. I don't think they will.
No. Okay. So, JB, let's go back to you. Please, I think you were talking about the hierarchy of U.S. Soccer Federation refereeing. So,
the referee license pathway for United States Soccer Federation. There's 5 tiers, so everybody starts as a grassroots referee. The next tier up is regional referee, and then national, and then pro, the professional referee organization, and then a FIFA referee. So I don't, at my advanced age, I don't ever anticipate becoming FIFA referee. As with some lifestyle changes and moving in the right direction, being fitter than I've been since we all played together, if I'm being honest, becoming a national referee, the next step for me would be to become a regional referee. So 3 years of certification, consecutive, and then, of course, some assessments along the way from assigners, pro referees, other things of that nature. Honestly, I'm relatively new to this still. I just have such a passion for the game. Having reconnected with soccer has really kind of put me in the right direction. I've always loved the game. Like I said, I've always played or tried to play as much as possible. There were years I wasn't playing as much as I wanted to, but that injury led me to getting recertified. And I've told so many referees I've worked with, younger referees especially, that had I pursued this when I was their age, when I was entering college, when I was, in my early 20s, had I pursued this with the skill set I have, the knowledge I have as a referee, the passion I have for the game, I would have likely, I wouldn't say likely because you never know, but I would have done everything I could to pursue and climb that license pathway up to. So,
Well, hey, don't limit yourself, because I'm going through the U.S. soccer coaching badges right now. So when I'm running the men's national team, I better see you out there as a FIFA pro ref. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my next step, and it's certainly attainable. My aspiration is to become a regional referee.
There you go.
That's my goal. The city I live in now, I live in Bristol, Tennessee, the birthplace of country music. So, as some people may know it, but it's in the very northeastern corner of Tennessee. Johnson City, Bristol, and Kingsport is known as the Tri-Cities. There's a few universities. There's actually a NPSL team, the National Professional Soccer League. I believe it's fourth tier is what it would be considered, behind MLS, and then USL 1 and USL 2. But there's a team coming to Bristol. My goal in the next few years is to at least be refereeing at that level. So I don't know at this point what that's going to take, but that is my aspiration. So.
Okay, great.
I was going to try out for them, but I think most of their guys are either coming straight from the universities in the area, what have you. But I mean, Nate knows that I could probably give him a run for his money.
Yeah, I think you could. I definitely think you could.
You have to start doing a lot of yoga and channel your inner Zlatan Ibrahimovic so you can play until you're like 40.
Well, yeah. I actually change it to more of like an Iniesta role.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So I'm not so much the Zidane type that I was in 2004, but yeah, I mean, I could channel some inner playmaking and just kind of hang out in the center circle a lot if I have the right teammates, you know.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
All right. So, what is reffing a game like? You know, walk us through. You've talked to the coaches for the little, we'll say high school, right? Because that's where my corollary experience is at. So you've talked to the coaches about your little pregame spiel,
right,
and you're getting ready to go. So let's say as you're getting ready to blow the whistle, what's going through your mind, and then how does the next 80 minutes feel? What's that like?
Well, the preparation, and I've learned so much over the last 2 years, and I've been fortunate enough to work with so many great referees that have a lot of experience. Now, in this area too, we have a lot of younger referees who look to that. So my first season here, I was so new and coming to a new area that I actually requested to only work AR. I was only working as an assistant referee for the majority of my first season. So I was doing some junior varsity games. And actually, that said, I absolutely adore high school soccer. I think it's fantastic. The experiences that I had, that we had together playing as well. It's a completely different game. Teams, when they play like with their clubs and things like that, and I had great experiences playing clubs, but high school it's a completely different environment. There's a passion. There's, these kids all go to school together. They've all played together for so long, most of them. So at that level, especially with the highly competitive teams in the highest divisions, there's just nothing like it. It's amazing. And I actually had the opportunity just a few weeks ago to referee at the state tournament for the girls, TSSAA state tournament in Chattanooga, and that was a wonderful experience. That said, going into a match, I learned from the referees that really know what they're doing. The pregame meeting with the captains, coaches, and an administrator is so much more important than I had ever given it credit for. So now in Tennessee, where I am, there has to be an administrator at every game. A lot of times that's going to be the athletic director of the school. Sometimes it's just going to be the coach. That should be noted. There's reports, all these sorts of things. But, I'll tell the captains to respect each other, respect the game, understand that we're here to call the game. They're here to play the game. I don't coach them. They don't need to coach me. We need to be respectful. There's so many things that you can communicate with the captains of a team to earn the respect before the game even starts. And then as the game's going too, there's so many aspects. You ask what it's like to referee a game, but knowing the laws of the game is absolutely crucial. You're going to experience so many less problems with spectators, with players on the field, with coaches, if you really just know the laws of the game. So in and out, that's absolutely crucial. I won't say that I've worked with a lot of referees that don't, but when you have referees that make mistakes, as we all do, you're just going to run into more issues. So if you are on top of the game, maintain your positioning, again, there's so many aspects to what it actually means to be a referee. You need to, again, positioning is absolutely crucial. You need to be in the correct position to make the correct call at all times. You need to keep up with the play. Signaling is incredibly important as well. You need to look the part, or else you're not going to be taken seriously. Again, so many aspects to it, but if you enjoy it, and I'll go back to it, the passion for the game, it can be seen. People can tell that you're there and you want to do a good job, and that's a huge part of it as well.
Okay, I have a couple quick questions already. I love this. Okay, so I think Eli might be able to speak to this. I know I certainly could speak to this when I was a player. Referees get abuse. I'm not pointing any fingers here, Eli, but referees get abuse. And
hey, that's what happens when you're the captain.
Yeah, for sure.
Captains, but
yeah.
Was I abusing referees, or was I just? It was banter, I think.
I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
Also,
I'm speaking about Eli being a coach too.
The dark arts of being the holding midfield captain. You got to do some game management and unsettle the ref, and it's
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Anyway, back to the question. Here's my question. We obviously understand. Look, this is like without referees, the game doesn't exist. We're going to get into here in a couple minutes some decisions, and like theoreticals about how the Prem might be able to adjust VAR to make the viewing experience and as a consumer even better. But I think the biggest question for me is how do we incentivize young people to go into refereeing as a career to ensure that we have the best talent just above board, like so that we can have the best product in the States and so that we can, ship out the talent to larger leagues to basically, this is the question. How do we incentivize people to do this?
Well, I mean, that's a great question. For one, I mean, compensation is absolutely crucial.
You're getting fat stacks, right?
Yeah, right. Well, I won't sugarcoat that at all. It pays well. I've said too, and what I do for work, I'm fortunate enough to actually be able to like make my own schedule to sort of supplement my income during seasons and actually work as much as possible, referee as many games as I possibly can. That said, when it's great money during the season, it's just not a consistent thing year round. So it's not going to be until you reach a very high level. It's not going to be something that can be a viable career option, so to say.
Yeah, so I was going to ask then, how do we get? I guess maybe part of it is too is like, how do we build a culture with football to ensure that coaches, parents, young people coming up in these communities reestablish a relationship of respect, of understanding the rules, and like, we need to be able to create social environments.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the culture, soccer culture, football culture in the United States is there's so many pockets of it's really everywhere, and it's only improving, I think. What I see in this area, there's tremendous growth. There's great clubs, the high schools. Uh, I think Tennessee is doing a fantastic job. I think USSF in general, as far as cultivating referees and referee culture, from what I'm seeing in Tennessee, it's phenomenal. I've had an opportunity to do, well, I would have been doing my third state cup here, if I hadn't sustained an injury at the high school state tournament. But even then, they're taking care of the referees there. There's food catered in. There's people making homemade food. It's fantastic. They have it all set up. Everybody's getting zipped around on golf carts everywhere. The turf fields here, but I can't speak for places that I haven't refereed, obviously. So I know that it can't just be limited to Tennessee, however, obviously as well. There's the culture of soccer is I mean it's amazing. It's what's always drawn me to the game. Um, and in at the State Cup, for example, like there's the motivation to be there and the camaraderie that you see between the referees, the support we have for each other, the higher, the people, the state referee assigners, different positions at the top of the pyramid are so supportive and encouraging of every level of referee. And almost all referees, I don't know the statistics, but well over 90% of referees are just the grassroots level. So
Right.
referees will never climb to the regional level. Some don't aspire to at all, which is understandable. Some referees that I work with only do high school games. They don't do any club soccer whatsoever. Club and high school, there's club tournaments that run, throughout the summer, different seasons. The girls here in Tennessee, the girls play in the fall and the boys play in the spring for high school, and then vice versa for their respective clubs. Um, the the culture is, and again, back to your question as far as like how do we encourage more referees and that culture, other than compensation, is just as players, more leadership from referees, more communication with players, and just transparency in general. And also, Tennessee absolutely encourages a positive environment from spectators for, and coaches towards referees. So I think that's absolutely crucial as well. So what they're doing here, I can only hope that most other states are doing that same sort of have that same sort of attitude towards referees, and not allowing for that sort of abuse. So and it shows. I have had very few issues. I've done Somewhere in the range of 120 to 200 matches, like close 150. It depends because a lot of the games that I've done have been like unsanctioned adult matches, things like that. So what I consider like sanctioned matches, either TSSAA or USSF tournaments and club matches, ECNL, things like that. At least 100 matches. I've had so few issues with anything becoming harassment or like escalating to a point where even like reports need to be filed, anything like that.
Right.
I'm not saying police reports, like reports with referee organizations,
Right. Yeah.
associations, and things like that.
So, as you were talking, I was like, okay, so from the coach's seat, how can I help this, right? And I think part of it is I may like we require our players to do a certain amount of community service in the off season. So maybe I'll say, hey, if you go through the reffing certification, you get double community service points for every game that you ref in like Parks and Rec or something. But
Sure.
then it's also to give players a clear path and encourage them to get into reffing because very few high school soccer players, footballers, are going to go on to play in college, and even fewer are going to go play at a higher level than college. So it's like really finding those that are passionate about the sport, that want to make a difference in the way that they can, and grabbing on to that and getting them into the pipeline of, hey, you should get into reffing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and as I mentioned, I refereed when I was young. It was a great way to just make a little cash when I was a teenager, refereeing, our local rec leagues and things like that. And those things exist in so many communities throughout the country, in different states, everywhere. Um, Encouraging players to do so, and I think that's a fantastic idea to get players involved. Not only do they actually learn the laws of the game, which is crucial in learning how to play the game as well. But it does. You'll find players that are passionate and, like you said, who may not be going on to play in college, who certainly will not be going on to play at anything higher than that, but are still passionate for the game. It does provide a way to stay connected to the game, and those who are passionate about soccer really understand that culture and appreciate that culture. And that just keeps, there's like the EPL in the Premier League, that's a whole nother level of what we're even talking about here. But like the collegiate level of soccer, grassroots level of refereeing, it's a culture that so many people have come to love and appreciate, as they're playing, as they're growing, and going through school. And I think I'm a perfect example of that. I stopped refereeing once I stopped playing when I was young, when I stopped playing competitively. Um, wasn't able to play in college due to injuries, I will maintain. Um, but I I sort of drifted away from that soccer culture, and I think the more players, younger players that actually, you know, have the passion for the game, that want to stay involved, I think refereeing is a perfect avenue for that. And not only that, you'll make good money. And if you're good at it and you understand the game, as you've played, and especially fresh off of playing competitive soccer, you can really appreciate and learn how to communicate with players, know better how to understand, or better how to uh, manage a game. And it's a great way to stay involved with soccer, and to help younger players, and cultivating that as you yourself as a coach. That's crucial, and it's so appreciated from the referee community. I can't speak for everyone, but um, encouraging players to become referees, it's a great way for them to learn the game, understand the game, and if they so choose to continue refereeing, to manage the game, become a great referee, and climb that license pathway.
It's also probably important for coaches to show leadership about how to speak to refs, don't you think? Anyway, I'll just drop that there. Should we move on? I think there's a really big question. I think we've got a couple minutes left. I really want to be able to give time to talk about this because I think this is very interesting. Is there any before we move on? I just want to make sure that are there any last things that you wanted to reiterate about grassroots reffing or anything, any points that you feel like you didn't have the opportunity to hit yet, Jesse? Just as far as talking to the thousands of people out there.
Thousands of people, yeah. It's something that, and I mentioned it already. Because I am so passionate about the game, and I've so recently really reconnected to the actual, like, the high school game itself and the club game. I miss it. The coaches are fantastic. Working with the players, most coaches are fantastic. It's and even so, it takes a strong-willed individual to understand that game situations need to be managed. Games need to be managed. So it's not easy. It's really not. It's something you have to appreciate. You want to do. That's why you see so many referees like discontinue, that don't want to continue being a referee, because they don't truly appreciate the game for what it is. I think that's
I just want to piggyback on something you touched on there, right? And you and I had this conversation before we started recording about the conversations I had with my head coach this fall about, as a coach, you want to maybe provide constructive feedback to a ref on how they're managing a game. There's also is that element of gamesmanship, but also you don't want to cross a line where you're like pushing this person to a point where they just don't want to do it anymore, because there are ref shortages, especially where I'm at, and the rural upper Midwest, that we don't have a great dearth of referees that we can call upon. I saw the same 3 refs at every home game, so it's like you
Well,
gotta,
also,
it's like being respectful. It's like you said, but it's also like, hey, there's some back and forth here. One of the things I thought of, just to backtrack a little bit, that would be good to I think implement at the high school level is, people don't really want one more meeting on their plate, but have a preseason conference between the refs and the coaches, right? The coaches have their preseason conference, the refs have their preseason conference, and then they all meet and talk about, hey, here's the updates to the rules. These are the refs in your region. Let's, have something going on. So it's not the first time you're meeting them, 5 minutes before kickoff,
right.
So you have that established rapport.
We do that here.
Really? That's great. Okay, so
yeah,
Wisconsin's just behind.
That's another example of where I think, like, Tennessee's got it right in so many aspects. A lot of people might not think that, might not know that, but I'd say outside of major areas, major states, especially Florida, New York, California, Texas, Tennessee's right up there with them in that regard. Those things are crucial. That's got to happen. That should be happening. And when we were playing, I don't even remember pre-game conferences with captains. Like, the referees didn't say anything to us before the game. Like, there's places that are going to be growing. There's referees that understand that. There's referee associations and state associations, club associations that are going to understand that. So the more that do, the better it's going to be for everyone. So yeah, before the high school season, this season, same thing last year. I think it's only once a year. It's not before every single season. It may be, and I might have just missed one. But they bring in somebody from the state office. They bring in the people from all the high schools in the area. We have Tennessee's kind of unique in that, there's Memphis, then there's Nashville, all the surrounding areas of those two major cities, Chattanooga as well, and then the Tri-Cities area. So there's like four major sort of hubs for soccer in Tennessee. So all the referees from our region are meeting, and we actually have the Tri-Cities Soccer Referee Association, which I'm part of, and we meet once a month via Zoom. So the communication is there on our end, and I think that goes a long way when you have structures like that then communicate with coaches. But yeah, I mean, all the coaches in the area here, and I'm new. 2 seasons with each boys and girls. All the coaches know who I am. And even though I'll only see one school 3 or 4 times maybe a season. So yeah, that's we got to catch up there in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I will say though is really quickly is that it does seem great that we're even having this conversation, because the thing is like, well, now it feels like you might have a platform to stand on, you know what I mean, Eli? Which is like that you can even bring this in conversation to the state level or wherever you need to, because we've even opened this Pandora's box with Jesse. So
yeah. So to get us back on task here, we've got about 12 minutes to
tell them
fix
VAR. I'm upset
VAR.
with them still for not selecting me as all state because we didn't have a conference.
Yeah.
I think it's ludicrous.
yeah.
Yeah.
Nate as well. I mean, come on.
Wait, sorry, Eli, you were saying.
We have 11 minutes to fix VAR. Okay, so here we get to the real hot topic.
Yes.
So Nate and I had an episode that never aired because we had technical issues right after the Liverpool-Tottenham debacle, and the audio from that came out. No, it was before the audio came out. Anyway, I said the way you fix VAR was to pull from my military experience, and you create structured conversations, right? Like there's a script that you have that you read through, and you just input pertinent information, but it's the same conversation. It's the same words every time, to avoid things like VAR thinking the on-field decision was goal when it was actually offside, and saying, hey, you got it right, and then robbing Liverpool of a goal.
Right.
Anyway,
that was nothing short of a debacle. That was one of the most egregious, and that'll actually lead to the change that, I hope, because yeah, they ultimately, they all agreed, got the decision correct, and got the restart wrong. That's what it came down to. They got everything right. They made the right decision, and then he restarted the game, and they're like, and then it had gotten to a point they played another 20 seconds, and you can't go back from there. But then at what point can you go back? Because it could have been.
So,
but the problem is what. Sorry, you go ahead, Eli.
Well, what I was going to say is to try and really focus us in here for the next 10 minutes is my understanding is VAR will not overturn a call unless there has been a clear and obvious error by the center ref, right? Mm-hmm. So in your opinion, as an experienced center ref, is that setting the system up for failure? Because we hear things about like Mike Dean saying, oh, I'm not going to reverse that call. That dude's my mate. Yeah. So like from your experience as a center ref, how could a VAR be better implemented to help you manage the game better?
Well, that's hard to say. I think like obviously that circumstance with Mike Dean, that situation, another one, like it's just absurd. That can't happen. Now, we also have to remember, too, the EPL, you get to that level just like the NFL in the United States. Like, it's an entertainment business. It's something that we're all consumers of. However, they need to get that right. That sort of subjectivity is unacceptable. Not giving a call because he's their mate. But I think all in all, the grand scheme of things, VAR is, it's implemented fairly consistently. But negativity bias is going to lead you to, well, Eli, 90+% of calls are getting called correctly. But again, negativity bias is good. If somebody makes a mistake at that level, it's going to be, you're losing credibility when you're using the excuse that everyone makes mistakes.
But let me ask you a question though. Like I agree with you, right? Like like you are correct. We are getting more calls correct. But in my opinion, like the question that you just said, and makes quite a lot of sense, is this is a product. This is an entertainment industry. That is why we're watching. This is what it's about. But the question is, there are calls that are being implemented incorrectly, or the subjectivity of it is so wishy-washy that there isn't a fair or clean or clear and obvious overturning of these situations, and then it leaves us as fans wanting more.
If I may interject there,
Yeah.
Because some referee decisions are subjective as far as like what is and is not a foul. Obviously, like offside, there's no subjectivity to that whatsoever. You're offside or you're not. It's sometimes like you'd need a robot as an AR. You could eliminate ARs, which is not an option. We need them. We love them. I love being an AR as well. But to actually be in line with the second defender or ball, which is ever closer to the goal line, like that sort of thing, it's a near impossibility. But there's no subjectivity to offside. But because there's subjectivity to some calls as a referee, 100% accuracy with VAR is impossible.
Right.
But we need to, it's got to be better when it comes to, if you have, how many VARs are there? 4 plus the 3 on the field most of the time.
Right. So, but that comes back to my question. It's like subjectivity plays in the game no matter what, right? And for me, the bigger question remains, is the lack of calls that are slipping through the cracks, even while there are calls that are slipping through the cracks while VAR is happening, does the pausing, does the repetitive going back to the screen, does the pausing of the player's foot rolling over the ball and hitting the shin and getting an automatic red card, are these reasons, like, is that making this product, as a consumer of the product, better? That's what I'm asking. And I'm not sure the answer is yes.
I don't think so. No. I think that honestly there needs to be, it needs to be less. It needs to be like it needs to be whether the ball is in play or out, in touch or out of touch. Like if it's across the line, goal line technology is fine. That's great. But for example, the one on, what was it, Gordon's goal? Was it Newcastle?
Yeah, Arsenal, Newcastle.
Yeah. So that play, the ball going over the line, why don't they have the technology to, I don't think it was over the line. From what I saw, I don't think it was. That ball stays in play. I do think it was a foul on the cross. I think he was pushed in the back. That said, that's what's subjective there. So the referee determined that that's not a foul, and they went on from that. His hands were on his back. Did he move forward to head the ball, to clear the ball? That's not a foul. I think it was. And then the offside decision. I don't think he was offside. You can't see where the ball is. I believe it moved backwards. Not 100% sure on that one, but again, nothing clear to overturn that one. So ultimately, the goal is given as it was on the field. They look at it. They look at 3 different things. It takes 9 minutes, 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like, as a consumer of the sport, it's like, what?
Well,
Right.
see, here's where I almost wonder if we have the implementation of more scripted conversations and shared audio. Okay.
That I agree with.
Like,
Well, I think
the
almost
refs
all
are mic'd up.
Yeah.
Because they already are talking to each other. It's 2023.
Right.
We can communicate with anyone on the planet within a matter of seconds. So there doesn't have to be these huge delays. It's these scripted conversations happening in radical transparency.
I think a lot of it is just the verbiage from the laws of the game, which is great for the most part, but they're all over the place with it. It's there's only 17 laws, but it's a huge file essentially. So they're having these conversations, but they need to restrict that. They need to, like you're saying, they need to script it, and they need to know exactly what they're looking at, and it may be as simple as the referees that are working these VAR positions are just referees. They're also referees that are also not being given the higher paid positions as the center and the ARs for those games. So you take that into consideration. Why wouldn't the VARs be not non-referees, but not essentially colleagues? There needs to be people, or there could be, not needs to be, but there could be a whole different organization or a whole different that they're not competing with or colleagues with.
Sorry, just real quick. I think you hit the nail on the head there. Is what VAR needs to be is an independent commission of rules experts that they can recite verbatim the law to, but they can, as they're talking, they can recite the exact verbiage of the rule to the center and say, this is where we're at. Based on that, we as the independent panel think this should be the call. Okay, so catching back up, we were talking about scripted conversations and transparency on the audio. Where were you at, Nate? You had some insightful commentary.
I actually have a couple questions and thoughts. So the first thing is, like, I agree that there should be scripted prompts, like what Eli is saying and what Jesse is advocating for. I think that's really clear. I think that they should have playback in stadiums and in commentary on live streams for viewers, because once again, this is a product that we are consuming and paying like quite a lot of money for. And
you imagine the scene that would have happened had like the transparent audio and it was in the stadium with the Liverpool goal. That was
it would have been,
it never would have happened
chaos.
That way,
right?
No, it wouldn't have happened that way because if they would have said it out loud, the reaction from the crowd would have been like, I'll tell you what would have happened.
Yeah.
Somebody would have grabbed a soccer ball from one of the ball boys and thrown it onto the field, or somebody would have run off from Anfield. They would be on the pitch and they would be like, "No, you're stopping the game, and I'm getting arrested, and that's fine."
Someone, I'm thinking,
the whole,
can't arrest the entire cop, right?
Yeah. Anyway, So it's interesting. I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this. I recently heard on a YouTube video from a competitor, TalkSport. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of them. They've got a little bit of a following, but we're right behind them. And so some guys on there, they were talking about the idea, and this may be implemented in other leagues, I don't know, semi-automated offsides calls where they have sensors in the jerseys and a sensor in the ball, which would be essentially having goal line technology that you could, in ratio to people, right? Like, it's like if you have it sewn into the shoulder, right? Then you always know where the offside point is on the player. There's no questioning about it. It's not a human touch where you have to pinpoint where it is, right? You have the ability for your shoulders or wherever the points are, if it's in a foot or something like that, or in the ball, it gives you the ability to have goal line technology on moving people. I don't know if you guys have heard of this, or if you could immediately see errors.
Well, no, I don't even think you have to sew anything into the jersey because they're all wearing sensors anyway in their little sports bras.
No. But that would be a sensor. That would be a sensor right in their back. I'm suggesting that we're talking about the place of where, like, if they pause for one frame, then they can like to a millimeter level know exactly where the pinpoint is. Like, you can score a goal here, you can't score a goal here, right? Like, that's the argument, is they're always saying there's like a cuff It's like the bottom of your sleeve. You can't score a goal. It's a handball. That means that can't be offsides, right? That's where it starts to get murky. So when someone starts to move like this on an offside call, and they push the pause, and they put the little lines up, and they find the frame where the ball leaves the person's foot, which is also absurd, then there might be more of a scientific way to be able to establish that, because then it is like using the equivalent of goal line technology with where each player's body is on the field the moment the ball leaves the player's foot.
But you're not gonna, so like that makes sense, that as far as like when the ball is actually touched, because you see them going frame by frame and saying, all right, pause it there, one frame back. So they can get the exact moment, but they won't be able to see which part of the player, like depending on where the sensor is. Like there's, your head can put you in an offside position if it's a millimeter ahead.
I guess that's the thing that
they all just have to wear motion capture suits.
Yeah, let's just digitize the whole thing.
This is a totally different subject beyond that, but it is possible and would be possible to have goal line technology on every inch of the field. That would be possible, meaning that the Gordon goal from Newcastle would be able to be definitively told whether it was out or not. And that should be something that should be implemented, because why not?
What did you guys think about that that 3 instance took 9 minutes? What about all 3 instances?
My perception is that here's my overall view about it. I think 9 minutes is too long. I think that I think the drama is built into sport. I think that people being pissed off and arguing about it when your team loses on a controversial call is built into the drama of what sporting events are, right? So I think the pill is much harder to swallow, which is why Arteta went absolutely nuts afterwards. And and honestly, I think beyond.
But even he wouldn't specify as to why, as to which.
I think he felt like it was off. He said that it was offsides and that it was a foul on Gabriel, or that it was a foul, right?
The pushing
back. Right. So my overall view about it is that I think the push is the one that is subjective, and I could see how a ref could give it. I could see how a ref wouldn't give it, and that's fine. I think the issue is it cannot take 9 minutes. It simply can't, because when it takes 9 minutes and you say, here's the call, it better fucking be right.
Right.
Because if it's not, then everybody wants to burn the place down. And that's the problem.
You can hear them say that right at the beginning of it, when they're looking at it, they say, well, we won't have goal line technology there. It's like, why not? It's on the goal line. The goal line extends corner flag to corner flag. Why wouldn't they have a definitive, like, the line to show that ball was in or out? I don't understand that.
It's the wealthiest league on the planet. They can afford it. They can figure it out.
Right. And so that said, what we were given, I don't think that ball was out. I think had we had the technology, I don't think that ball was out. Which we do have the technology. It's just not being implemented there for some reason. And then the offside, same thing. Like, where's the other angle? Flip it. Give me the other side of so I can see the ball. Like,
can I say something really quickly that might go into a rabbit hole, and I don't want it to go too far? So Eli, reel me back here in a second. As a filmmaker, the thing that I find to be really frustrating about the idea of what offsides is that there is a difference of speed between 24 and 36 and 60 frames a second. And the truth is, those frames are individual still pictures of a moment in time that is not representative of real time. There is something that is created in cameras called motion blur, which is what makes motion look natural to our eyes. And when you don't have motion blur, it feels very game-like, and it looks like really cheap soap operas, and it really off-puts people. But motion blur means that there is no crisp image of when a ball leaves a player's foot by a millimeter. I have such furious rage whenever there are offside calls, because the thing that they're never looking at with great detail is when the ball is leaving the player's foot. That's the whole gambit to me. I'm like, what are we talking about?
Well, so I think the way you solve that, right, is VAR is not using the commercial feed, right? You have a whole different camera setup at a different frame rate.
Well, didn't they?
The
totally
VAR
be
is
doing
using, and then the
Didn't they put
consumer
chips in the
sees
ball at the-
whatever 24 or 30 frames a second.
And they should have a chip in the ball. That if they have that technology, and they should be doing what Eli is saying, which is like we shouldn't be using commercial feeds. We should be consuming the way that we want to see 4K sports played, which has motion blur and it looks beautiful, and it's in the frame rate that we see everything else in, like movies and TV shows, either 24 or 30 frames a second. And then they should have something that's like 120 frames a second with no shutter, like zero shutter angle. There's no motion blur. They can tell the exact moment that it comes off of the dude's foot.
Yeah.
Absolutely, especially in the EPL. Did you guys see the photo of the CONCACAF VAR room? It's one of the most embarrassing things I've ever seen.
No.
It's fantastic. Hold up. No, it's ridiculous. They look like they're like a hotel banquet room. It's absurd.
Can I also bring up another question? I'd be curious to see how you think this could be solved. So the current rule in the EPL is that when there is an offsides that looks relatively clear and obvious but may not be, they hold the flag down. They continue to allow the game, that play, to cycle through. Right?
I go through this in every pregame meeting with my crew.
Okay.
So I literally say this is not the EPL. Like, if it is offside, you get the flag up. We don't allow. We're not looking for consumerism. We're not looking for goals. We're not allowing the play to extend another 30 yards and a goal to be scored before. Like, if the player is offside, if it's clear, but if you believe that it's offside, the flag goes up and stays up. That's what needs to happen. So,
sorry, go ahead.
In the Premier League and in other leagues, they're essentially allowing that play to continue for the excitement factor, for the possibility of a goal, because they can go to VAR, because they can go back and look at it. But
also, isn't it to mitigate the one time out of 10 that the assistant referee does get it wrong and they pull it a little bit too early?
It could be, but I mean, that's the thing. If these guys they're at the peak of refereeing, they should not be getting that wrong. If they get it wrong, then there needs to be sanctions against them individually for getting it wrong or whatever. I mean, that's hard to say because you said 1 in 10. It's probably less than that, I would imagine.
Yeah, sure. But here's my bigger question about that. This is my question about the ethos of the way that plays out. When in the Premier League, there is an offsides call that is too close to call and the linesman keeps their flag down and the play continues on and there is either a foul or the ball goes out of bounds, no matter which team it goes out for, that play continues on and they don't make the call. Even if it was offsides through VAR, it continues on in the state of play. Doesn't that seem like total like somebody could be offsides? Liverpool, who pulls the offside trap all the time, VVD takes a step up. They're offside by a hair. Their chin hair is offsides. They play out the rest of the thing, and they get a corner kick. They still get to play the corner kick. If they get a goal off that corner kick, that's cheating.
Right. Absolutely. And that said, too, what if – I agree with you. You're spot on there. What if a play is offside, it's not given, leads to ultimately the most egregious red card you've ever seen? Somebody absolutely shreds the back of somebody's calves on a red card. Dog so red. Clear.
Everton goalkeeper totally does VVD's ACL. What was his name? What was his name?
The Anger T-Rex.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, you're saying, Jimmy.
What if that player is given a red card for violent conduct or, serious foul play? Say it is violent conduct. Say there's no attempt to play the ball. It's just a game-saving opportunity. Violent conduct, absolutely just
Zidane into Chiellini's chest.
And then it goes
Maserati
to VAR, and it's determined to be offside. Does that player continue to play? How far do we go back?
That's the thing, man. I mean, argumentatively, if we're playing by the rules that the EPL has established, let's change that, which the PGMOL has established that the EPL has ratified, I think that player would stay on the field. Because if they go back to VAR and it's offsides, then that play is over.
And that's
But the
when
problem
you get to the mysterious law 18, the spirit of the game. Because if something like that happens, that player's off no matter what.
But here's the bigger issue. It's not even about that super rare red card that's probably not going to happen after the offsides call didn't take place. The bigger issue is what happens if there's a breakaway and there's a offsides call, and it should pretty much be offsides, but the ARs are told, the assistant refs are told to keep down the flag, so they let the play continue on, and then the goalkeeper does his ACL, his meniscus, his hamstring, because they're doing a play on a one-on-one, and the goalkeeper
as well in pre-games. I say that because that's what could happen. You know, a player's pulling a hamstring because you didn't raise the flag, and we're running 20 yards down the field until they're involved with the play. They're involved with the play in my eyes. Now, this is controversial, but as soon as a defender has to follow as soon as the defender has to follow an attacker in on a ball that's played in behind, that's when the attacker becomes involved with play. That's when the flag should go up. If it's clear that they're going to get to the ball and the defender has to react, even if we're 15 yards away from the ball still, that's not the law of the game now. And so they have to actually be playing the ball. There was an example, I think it was I don't remember the two teams. It was in Champions League. A ball's played in behind. It's a clear offside. The defender is 6 or 7 yards away from the attacker who it was going to, has to slide to make a clearance attempt to play the ball to keep it from going to the attacker who's clearly offside. That clearance attempt goes inside, immediately goes to an attacker who scores on a subsequent touch, and it's a goal. That attacker was in an offside position. The defender would not have done what he was to do, but then the attacker who was in an offside position was never involved in the play because he didn't actually receive the ball. It never got to him.
That's absolute horse hockey. That is absolute ridiculous. That's ridiculous. That is the failure of the rules to the game. That is not the intention of the game. That is absurd.
I know, and I actually discussed it, and I wish I could remember which two teams it was, because it's not lower level because it's Champions League, but it was
yeah, it's probably AC Milan and some
other AC Milan, huh? No, little.
I don't know. It was just the first name that came to my mind.
Sevilla, maybe. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Oh, they're never in the Champions League, so.
Yeah.
Well, they make it in the Champions League because they win the Europa League and then get eliminated in the first round, and then and back in the Europa League and win.
It actually might have been Sevilla. Now that I think about it. But in any case, that's a circumstance in which, now going back to the offside in that circumstance, like at the level I referee, at the grassroots level in the United States, even you get into NPSL or USL2, USL1, like that's going to be called, like the referees are throwing those flag ups. Wherever there's those flags up, wherever there's not VAR, it's going to be, the flag's going up. Wherever there is VAR, you're running the risk of injury, you're running the risk of all sorts of things.
So let me pose it to you this way then. Okay, hold on. So, does the drama of the sport outweigh the very rare situation where the AR messes up the offside call? Like, because if I were to say, I agree, is the flag should go up immediately, and then they stop the play, and then VAR comes in and says, well, he was onside, so whoops-a-daisies. Is that,
I think, the
worse for the game than any litany of the situations where we've just talked about and say a player gets hurt?
I don't think so. No, because I think the referees at that level are making those calls correctly most of the time. It's leading to even more. It's leading to these situations that for one don't need to happen, like the debacle that we spoke of earlier, like that Liverpool goal that never was. It had the referee put his flag up there because
He did.
He did, and that's why.
That's why.
Yeah. So.
But let me just say this: as a Liverpool fan, if that flag went up and VAR did not exist, I'll tell you what I would do. God damn, that was offsides. All right, let's go.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they stopped the entire game, did not show us the lines as they drew them, did a VAR check, keep it silent, sweep it under the rug, didn't say anything and hold themselves to account or have any radical transparency.
I had it wrong for a minute. So they basically allowed the play to continue. The goal was scored. Then the AR put his flag up. And then they paused the game and the debacle continued.
Yeah, because what happened was the AR put his flag up, and then the VAR said, looking at the goal, checking the goal, and it's good. Basically, your on-field call is good. And then the on-field people were like, "Oh, okay, great, it's offside." So, but they never once said. This is why Eli is suggesting that there should be a script implementation, because they never once said the thing that was actually happening. Right. They were just saying in reaction to your call versus VAR checking offsides, goal or no goal.
Absolutely. So it should
whatever. Eli had a much clearer pitch than I did just now, but
no, that's spot on. They really just. I mean, they absolutely just. It's one because again they got it right, and then they got the restart wrong. Like, but then also it was the VAR in their verbiage, in the way that they said it to the on-field referees, to the center referee. That's where the miscommunication came. So like VAR got it right, communicated it wrong. On field, they got it wrong. The communication that's
the thing. The thing is that's the thing that the argument has been about, which is like VAR, semi-automated offsides, whatever implementation is, like the human communication in that situation was the breakdown, not the technology. It was literally just somebody being like, "It's a goal," and the other person be like, "No, it's not," and then it's like, "Okay."
Yeah, and then,
that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I have been in much higher stakes situations where it's clear and concise communication that makes the difference and keeps people safe. I don't understand why we don't have that at the sports level that's, worth billions of pounds a year.
Right. But I think because of interactions like this with the media, with fans and stuff like that, they
want.
Well, it's interesting. I think it's a double-edged sword. I think it degrades the product personally. And I think fans are letting them know that, like, the PGMOL is under the gun, right? Yeah. Like,
the pace of the game and the continuation of the game is part of what makes it the beautiful game. Like,
they don't even celebrate goals anymore,
right? Like, there's no excuse to stop a game other than the lovely hydration break, so to speak. Like, those things, like, you should not be stopping a soccer game for 3 minutes ever. It's just not.
Yeah.
And then
someone's hurt, but yeah.
Oh yeah, of course.
Or you just drag them off the field and get it going again.
Or stoppage time. It adds to more. It's okay.
Okay. Yeah. I think we're probably getting to that time because we're edging past an hour here. Let me ask you this question. I think, first of all, Jesse, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an unbelievable pleasure to have you. Thank you for talking to us about your experience in refereeing and talking to us about grassroots, and hopefully we can start implementing some of those things in our everyday lives, and talking to other players and young kids about getting into refereeing, and hopefully we can bring light to that through this podcast and many other things. But I want to leave us all off with this question really, really quickly, and then I'll do the official outro. Is football better with VAR or without it? Eli.
So VAR was implemented at the beginning of the 2019-2020 season, right? So we had
Sounds
been
about right.
watching Premier League for 12, 13 years at that point, maybe.
Oh, right.
And I gotta say, I feel like those 13 years compared to the last 4 were more joyful.
Even though we won nothing.
You're starting to sound like rival fans with Live VAR pool. But it was different because there was more. It's like you said, like if VAR didn't exist on the Diaz goal against Tottenham, you're like, well, that's just the way it goes, you know. We'll get one at another point in the season that works out in our favor. And I remember having those conversations back then. Is like it all just kind of evens out in the wash, you know. It's just the fine. It's just the human margins.
The margins,
Yeah, it's just the margins. And now that we've tried to overregulate, it feels like we've lost some of the acceptance of those margins. So for me, the game was more pleasurable, more pure, and more exciting before VAR.
Yeah, it feels like striving for perfection has created larger hurdles that we haven't overcome yet.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see how it goes. Jesse, what do you think? Premier League or professional level football better with VAR or without VAR?
Agreed. And to be the contrarian, however, you guys familiar with Pierluigi Collina?
Is that the French ref
guy?
from the '98 World Cup?
Italian referee.
Italian, that's it.
Yeah. Big blue eyes, bald hair, like alopecia probably.
Yes, the greatest referee of all time.
Yeah, he's incredible.
He's the chairman of the FIFA referees committee now. And he was quoted to say that VAR is like a parachute. It's good to have when you need it. And that said, what you said, I can't nail it exactly, but yeah, I mean, it's perfect for what we want it to be, but we haven't cleared those hurdles yet. I'd say that with the technology we have, if implemented properly and avoiding these clear and obvious errors that are still happening, it should be better for the game. But yeah, I mean, I do think that it should be better for the game, but I don't know if it is.
Copy. And there it is. I mean, I think that sounds perfectly reasonable. I think this is about time to call her quits for this evening. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. This has been American LFC. Again, Eli, my brother, joined us. Jesse, Jesse Brown, thank you for joining us today. It has been an unbelievable pleasure talking to both of you. Let's please do it again very soon.
I appreciate the opportunity, guys. Thank you.
All right, sounds good, guys. We will all talk soon and see you next week. Man City versus Liverpool next week.
Oh.
No big deal.